You don't want your employees to be idle, so why would you want your robots to be idle? Zebra Technologies is addressing idle robots by bringing their latest solution to the market, which requires 30% fewer robots, resulting in increased asset utilization and a cost-effective entry to automation for your fulfillment operations. The Zebra Symmetry fulfillment ecosystem is bringing you balanced utilization, more cubic capacity, and optimized pick paths so you can operate at peak performance. Want to take your fulfillment operation to the next level? Learn more at zebra.com or click the link in the show notes.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. And on today's episode, I am going to be joined by Ravindra Pandey, who is a retired lieutenant colonel from the Indian Army. And he's also a recent MBA graduate in 2024, so congratulations to him. But we're going to dive into a little bit of what does logistics and warehousing and supply chain look like on the military side, and specifically in the Indian military. And we're also going to talk to him a little bit about what he thinks is going on from his perspective in the industry, and also a little bit too on the India industry as well specifically. So, Ravi, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for a great introduction. I'm doing well, and I hope the same for you.
Yeah, definitely. And excited to get you on here, and definitely interested to talk about this because it's something that we haven't quite touched on, but I think it's important to talk about, how logistics is involved in the military aspect, because that's essentially where logistics kind of was born, right? It was out of the military. So very interested to dive into this with you, but why don't we kick it off? Tell us a little bit about your background and how you kind of ended up in the supply chain side of things.
Right. So, I joined military sometime in 2001, immediately after I completed my Bachelor of Science, and I graduated. And by the time I completed my studies, I was already through for the military to become an officer. So January 2001, I joined, and then after we had like formal rigorous training of 18 months in the Indian Military Academy, and I got commissioned into Infantry Regiment of Indian Army. So last 21 years thereafter, I moved to multiple locations within and outside India, and looking after the domains of operations, supply chain, logistics, strategy planning. So from the military perspective, generally you don't just focus on one area.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very widespread domain you have to look after. And as an infantry officer, as a leader, you have the responsibility of looking after your troops. So their HR aspects, then their logistic aspects, and then you have to also plan your battle. So everything is involved in this. So during these years, then I also worked for United Nations in Sudan in 2009-10 for a year plus. That was when the civil war broke out there, and there were a lot of disturbances when the UN stepped in. So I had got deputed there for a year plus. And then I also worked for DRDO, which is Defense Research Development Organization, a premier organization in India for hardware development and manufacturing. So I was with them for more than 3 years, and though my relation continued even after that, but then uh, physically I was there with them for almost 3 years plus. Then during these, I also did a lot of trainings in logistics and supply chain because of the roles which I handled.
Mm.
And then I did postgraduate diploma in my PGDM in HR and operations management from Civil University, Symbiosis in India. And then after my retirement, I came here to Boston and joined Hult International Business School for MBA and graduated last year in August. So I got into supply chain quite early in my service because of the
Yeah.
role I was there. And there's a very interesting story also. Like even though like I was looking after the management of my team, which was around 200 people,
Mhm.
but then after one of the training program, I was returning back to my base and I slipped on my bike. I broke my collarbone,
Oh.
got hospitalized, and so when I came back after a couple of days, since I could not take the active duty, so
Mm.
I was put into the logistics and supply chain to look after the complete aspect of that, and that is where I actually formally got introduced to supply chain.
Mm.
Uh, as a responsibility and looking after a team of more than 1,000 plus.
Oh wow.
So then, wherein like you are responsible for transportation, the logistics, the equipment, the ammunition, weapons, ensuring that everything from your rear echelons they come to you, and then you distribute them to the further ahead where the troops are deployed on the in the battlefield. So that's how my formal introduction to supply chain started.
Mm.
And we started looking after the warehousing of everything, and demanding and ensuring that everything, all the requirements are met or well in time, because a lot of things are at stake. There is a saying that army marches on stomach, so you have to ensure that the logistics are
Yeah.
taken care of, so that people are not left fending for themselves.
Mm. Interesting there, and it's interesting. It sounds like you kind of literally fell into supply chain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
But then that was an eye opener also. Like
mm,
you don't realize the how big the supply chain is till the
yeah.
time you really start handling that, and starting with small procurements and then going up to like $1 million deals, handling
Mm,
all those things. And then you have to ensure the safeguarding, the safe transportation of all the purchases, and then it has to be warehoused in a way that you don't lose anything
mm,
because of mishandling. So a lot of things are at stake in that. A lot
yeah.
of money is involved. You realize only after that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think, the supply chain, for those that like are not familiar and then get into it, like I think, they'll have that same reaction as you. It's like, wow, this is like touching very, very many things, right? So tell us a little bit, I guess, from the military perspective, because, if we work in, say we work for a company that ships mattresses, right? We're only dealing with mattresses, right? Maybe there's some accessories or something like that, but for the military, I mean, there's a lot of different things that need to be handled through the supply chain, right? So tell us kind of, I guess, what is the military handling like through the supply chain, and what types of things are, coming through those warehouses, and what did you have to, facilitate the movement and storage of?
We'll be back after a quick break.
Should I be excited or afraid of AI? The answer is yes. It's both.
Things are going to look so different in the next couple years. You will not be ready for the disruptions that are going to come. I'm Jeff Nielsen, host of Digital Disruption, the go-to podcast for technology leaders.
Our generation's conflict, I think, is going to be emotional, not economic.
The companies that are going to win are the ones that have a couple of characteristics.
Stay ahead of the curve with Digital Disruption, available now on your favorite podcast platform.
So military is like it's a self-sufficient organization. So it has to ensure that you have everything needed to survive on Earth.
Mm,
So starting with the ration, water. I mean, these are the two primary things which cannot be have a substitute with. If you need ration to survive, you need to have ensure that it is reaching the last man.
yeah.
Similarly, is the water. the transportation of water or the supply of water has to be ensured. And military, as you're aware, like it operates in a very remote areas. So these two primary things has to be planned in a way. And these things go back to like, starting with the staple foods. Like in India, we generally are more vegetarian kind of population.
Mm, right.
So rice, lentils, they become the basic necessities. And then, so these are the bulk purchases, which is done for the complete like 1.4 million employees, the military strength which is
Mm,
there. And they are transported to various echelons, the storage echelons across the country, depending on the locations where the troops are deployed, so whether it is the north of India or the south of India. And so we have like kilometers and kilometers of warehouses for that. So they are divided into various zones,
mm,
and then from there, as per the requirements or as per the the planning, how much quantity is to be kept at the last man, how much quantity is to be kept in the various stages backward. So the supply chain, the transportation plan flows in that way. So the trucks, suppose the transportation is both by trains as well as trucks.
mm,
So the trains carry the bulk of the load till where the rail head is there, and thereafter trucks take on. And also, like because of the trains take more time because of the priority at the national level. There are passenger trains running on the same track. Then there are other, the industrial things which are also moving
mm,
across. So the transportation by train takes more time than transportation by trucks. So both trade, that's why it's like multiple channels which is used. So you we do transportation by the trucks also, and also by the train. Trucks, we know that will take say 10 days to reach the destination. Trains will take say 30 days. So we plan accordingly based on the requirements at a specific locations. And so from the base logistic nodes, they are step forward to the regional logistic nodes.
mm,
There again the storage and handling is done. Now and then depending on the requirements in the forward area, they are further moved ahead. Then the most of the transportation is done in trucks.
mm,
It can be military trucks thereafter, or it can be civil trucks. So both are used depending on the situations and the requirements. If there is an emergency requirement, then of course the military trucks are used for the transportation because then they go straight to the base where it is needed.
mm,
If it is civil trucks, then they can't go beyond a certain limit. So then again, transshipment has to be done at some point.
mm,
So just to avoid that, for the emergency movements, we use the military trucks, which reach the last location, and this and the civil trucks they come to the nearest warehouse where they can be stored for whatever duration it is required. So it's a humongous network which is
mm,
working around the clock to ensure that these rations and all these items. Similarly, then it comes to the other equipments like weapons, their ammunitions,
yeah.
which is again the bulk of the transportation and the storage. Then we have the logistics, like maintenance equipments for the trucks which we use, or the weapons maintenance equipments. So all these items also has to be stage forward almost in a similar way. So every the basic structure is same. It's only that the use is maybe or the equipment may be different.
Mm,
So even the like weapons are again like they also move in the similar kind of system, the network, and only they are more difficult in the sense that you can't just show off a weapon while carrying them. So you need to ensure that adequate steps are taken, that people are not aware that the weapons are moving.
mm,
All those. So it has to. Those movements are a little secretive. Only very specific teams are handling those, and which is not known to rest of the echelons on the way. So
interesting.
it's only in the when it reaches a particular location, then when the people there come to know, okay, the weapon and ammunitions have come
Mm,
from the previous stage. So of course the leadership will always be aware about such movements, but not everybody. It's need to know basis basically.
mm,
Then the equipments is bedding. You have war equipments like individual kits, etc. So those have another cycle of basically uh, transportation, but then the basic structure again, what I said earlier, remains the same.
Mm.
It's only the importance and how much necessity is there of handling those, how much criticality is there to handle those equipments.
Mm. Interesting. Yeah. It's such a wide range of items, and like different things of how you have to handle them and things like that. I mean, and it's very interesting there. I didn't think about, I realized, obviously you would have to move some type of ammunition and, weapons and things like that. But I didn't think about, the complexity there in terms of, having to keep some of those movements secret, right? I guess because, you're at risk of, a bad actor wanting to hijack one of those trucks or something, right? So very interesting there. Would you say, like, out of all of the things that you're responsible for or that the military has to move, I mean, is that the most challenging part of it, or is there something else that's more challenging?
No, I mean, yeah, of course, weapons and equipments are definitely the most challenging because it requires extra care in handling those, plus the secrecy. But
Mm.
just imagine, like, even ration becomes also important because, for say, for example, like there are say 100 people dependent on some
Mm.
ration which is to come up. Now, if it doesn't reach, how are they going to survive in those
Mm.
remote areas where nothing is grown? You are sitting on a high an altitude which is like 21,000 feet. It's only ice around. How will you survive without ration?
Yeah.
So it becomes critical as you keep moving ahead. So everything is critical in this. Only thing is that if a ration goes into somebody's hand, uh, we may lose. We may have to think of alternate, but we are not worried that something bad will happen after that.
Mm.
It cannot be used for something to terrorize the people around or something like that.
Yeah.
But weapon and ammunitions, if somebody gets a hold of that, then there is a critical. The situation changes.
Yeah.
The
Interesting.
complexity changes.
Interesting. Yeah. 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 And I could see that balance there between, the, I guess the most important, right, is the rations there, it sounds like, and then, the most complexity probably around those munitions. So it's a very interesting look into that there. Now tell us a little bit about, were there any like specific projects that happened that stand out to you and was like a real learning moment for you, or made you realize like, oh, we need to do this a different way, or is there anything that stands out to you in your career there in the military that's like of note?
I mean, there are a couple of them, and to start with, like I would like to say that Indian military is huge. It's the second
Mm-hmm.
largest in the world.
Yeah.
So any process which is we have is generally manual processes.
Mm.
There's a long way to go and become digitized. So related to that, like when I went to DRDO, which is supposed to be technically more savvy, they
Mm.
should be ahead of everybody else. But when I reached there and I was handling this whole operations and supply chain over there, including security, so I realized that they are also following the manual process, sitting in the heart of a big towns in the country, and so their warehousing were in more bad shape than what I saw in military.
Oh wow.
So,
Yeah.
because and the processes were manual. So the vendors, when they supply some of the equipments which is needed for creating the develop the product, so they were manually entered into the system,
Mm.
then manually segregated, and so what was happening was like if at the floor they needed certain equipment or the parts which is required for building equipment, when they give the requirements to these warehouses,
Mm.
it used to go for months. I mean, they used to take months to hand over those parts, which were critical, and that way the projects were getting delayed. So
Mm.
when I reached there, I realized that there has to be some way where we can improve this whole system. And because coming from military, I had this secondary role of ensuring that all the military projects, I'm there to look after and see that they are pushed and so that they are completed on time, as there are larger requirements waiting for that.
Mm.
So when I interacted with a lot of experts in this civil organizations and took their mind how I can improve on that, and I realized that the automation has to be done because like they did not have even the warehouse management system.
Mm.
So so I created a plan, went to my boss who was the head of the organization, and then I told him that this is what is happening. I mean, and now this is what I'm looking at. If we automate it is going to help us speed up the process.
Yeah.
So he liked the idea. Only thing is, he used to always say that because his hands were full. There's so many things happening. There were 36 departments which the organization had within a small structure, and then everybody is in different direction. There's a lot of research work going on. There's a lot of development work going on, and then there is some manufacturing also going on simultaneously of the critical items. So when I came up with this idea, he immediately gave me a go for that. And then I got the budget allotted and went for because then I went for the vendors who create those kind of systems, and
Mm.
we gave out this as a project leader. I took on this responsibility and got the developed the system, put it in place. We started with automation first, and then we simultaneously started the segregation of the whole warehouse system. A warehouse which was like a dump
Mm.
of everything.
Really?
So based on the inputs and the expertise whom I hired, we started putting everything in a very like formal way.
Mm.
The way you see in most of the warehouses here, whether I
Right.
walk up to the Home Depot or even the Walmart or anyway. So similar way, we started segregating everything part by part, equipment by equipment, and we rebuilt the whole warehouse
Mm.
within that. And once it took almost like a year plus, but then by the end of year plus, everything was in place, and we were able to uh, give training to the employees who were handling that. Now the biggest challenge which came during that time was because they were been working in that for almost 20 years plus.
Mm.
They were used to the manual because they were happy doing that manually.
Yeah.
So when you say why can't we speed up the thing, no, it takes so much. They always had some excuse,
Mm.
and they were not technology savvy also. So I had to put some more employees on that who were young, who were more talented, who were go-getter kind of thing. So
Mm.
train them and then put them together. I didn't remove these old employees because I knew that it becomes a sensitive union. It was a unionized environment
Oh,
also.
yeah. Okay.
so
Yeah.
and but then I told them, you observe them, you work with them, and you will realize that how it has become made your life so easy after that.
Mm.
And after a couple of days, when they themselves got used to this, they were really happy because then they were getting more free time. Nobody was harping on them that why you are taking so much of time, getting my order and all those things. So they were happy also, and quickly things started moving. So
Mm.
something which used to take a month for them to fulfill started happening within a week.
Mm.
And even the vendors, when we introduced those RFID scanning corner things, so the moment the vendors used to supply the equipment, you just scan and we know that where it has to go, and immediately it is segregated and put on those shelves. And similarly with the demands, whichever demands are coming, they now exactly knew in the system on which rack where is this part kept. So so that picking, packing, and all those things, it speeded up. And my the time I spent there, like 3 years plus, it the same model then was copied to other 52 locations which the DRDO had.
Mm.
So it became a widespread project. And the second thing, which this same thing which I then did for the military in army, in when I came back after that to
Mm.
military, and I realized that because we had our own internal WMS systems,
Okay.
so which were old, slow, and required more manual feeding and all. So I plugged in the RFID scanning system, got the barcoding, those machines installed. It speeded up the thing.
Mm.
And so slowly, even same thing I did in wherever I went in military thereafter. So that helped because centrally doing the same thing for the complete organization is really a Herculean task in India
Mm.
because of the widespread distribution.
Yeah.
But in pockets, it is now being implemented and things are improving.
Mm. Very interesting there. And I think that, I guess it's interesting because, you think about, military organizations, right? You think about, organization and like, precision and things like that. So to hear like, on the back end, like some of these operations where, as you said, a bunch of stuff just like dumped in a in a building basically is very interesting to hear. But it's great to hear how you were able to, put that together and figure out a way to modernize the operations and bring in some automation and a WMS to be able to take it to the next level and get it to where it needed to be. So I'm curious. I mean, when you look at that, I mean, how does that compare to because I think there's a lot of discussion around the world about how are fulfillment operations progressing and things like that. So I mean, what does aside from the military itself, I mean, in India, what does like the warehousing and fulfillment market or industry look like?
So, India has been growing rapidly over the years, and with the focus of manufacturing
Hmm.
node, as if you look at globally, India has come up as a manufacturing country,
Yeah.
and so it requires a lot of warehousing, transportation, and handling of these equipment, and it becomes critical for the companies who are doing this manufacturing to ensure that whatever they are producing are also reaching the customer or the client for whom they are doing. So there is a trend, like upward trend for the growth of e-commerce in India and omni-channel retails, which are booming like anything because of the population, which is
Mm.
there of 120 billion people. I
Yeah, it's a
mean,
lot of people. Yeah.
it's so is the requirement,
Mm.
and interestingly, like pre-COVID, there was more of store shoppings. Even
Mm.
I prefer going to store and buy things, but during COVID, everything shifted to e-commerce.
Right.
So even the poorest of the person prefers buying it through online,
Mm.
going to Amazon website or any other retail business and buying it online. So that has increased the requirement of having this system in place
Mm.
within country basically the starting from the warehousing till the last mile delivery. you know so there's a network of people who are working on it. There's a lot of emphasis is given because at the end customer I would need the product in the way I'm looking at. you
Mm.
know if it is not up to the mark, I'm going to return it back. So that's why it is important for that the organizations or the channels which are handling these, that there's a care taken while transporting these items till the customer. And secondly is like it has become more fast and efficient
Mm.
because of this. What I need today, I need it today and not tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that efficiency has come in, and it has helped in uh, basically increasing the I would say the employment, because a lot of population is involved in handling of these, apart from the systems which are there, whether it is warehousing or the tracking systems and all those things. Then so there is companies which are adopting omni-channel strategies to handle this, and then uh, also the managing both as online as well as the offline purchases.
Mm.
So you have to have that strategy wherein you're handling both adequately. Then there is and because of these demands online, especially the e-commerce, there is an increase in requirement of the grade A warehousing, and where the high quality, large scale warehousing facilities, which have in fact come up very rapidly in India
Mm.
now, and in the urban or maybe in the remote areas, because like when I went back I think I went back in April to India just for a couple of days. I saw so much of changes. There, so many warehouses have come up in
Really?
particular
Mm.
areas. Yeah,
Interesting.
and so there is a rapid development on in these fronts, and because of that, and also there's a clear-cut focus of the companies or the organizations towards the automation. And sustainability is another
Mm.
factor which even the government, as a country, we are pushing for, and then compliance with the global standards, which as a nation we have pledged as to have a sustainable systems in place.
Mm.
So every year the government is also coming up with the compliances which the industry has to put in place,
Yeah.
and that too at a very short time frame. It's not like okay, in next 10 years you have to achieve. I'll give you an example. Like couple of last year, I heard the transport minister saying that in next 4 or 5 years, most of the vehicles have to shift to EV.
Mm. 4 or 5
So
years.
the
Wow. Yeah.
but it now he has given this mandate, but I can see there are a lot of challenges. But at least the industry is not all focused towards that and how to implement that.
Mm.
And similarly, is the standards of these what do you call it, the pollution standards. They had given the mandate for the countries to adopt like the higher level of standard for the cars emission,
Mm.
and which in 1 year they had to implement it, and the government forced the companies to comply with that, and ultimately companies did. All the car manufacturing companies complied with all these kind of compliances, the global compliances when it comes to the car emissions.
Mm.
So there is a lot of push by the government. So and similarly, the people and the industry and the customers has also realized it, how it is important for having a sustainable system in place. There's a lot of infrastructure which is being developed by the country, by the government. For example, like Bharat Mala or Sagar Mala, these are the projects which are improving the road and port network
Mm.
across India. Then we have like 3PL and 4PL companies which are gaining traction and which is allowing the businesses to outsource their logistics functions.
Mm.
And so, and the last thing which I feel is the adoption of the technology. And there's a lot of emphasis is being done by the industry when it comes to AI, IoT, blockchain, and then robotics for the real-time tracking,
Yeah.
warehouse automation. So there's a lot of adoption of technology in the system, and that is going up day by day.
Mm.
And so I think in the time to come, I believe as a nation, a lot will be achieved by the country
Mm.
at par with what the most of the European or even the US has.
Yeah.
It's challenges does remain because of the population, and but I think with the right focus, the country will be able to achieve that.
Mm. Yeah. It's very interesting because I think that, you mentioned the pandemic there, and how people got more used to ordering things online, right, and wanting things quickly. Whereas we saw some of that here in the United States too, but then that quickly, right, where you're looking at 2 hour delivery or something like that, kind of like was not. It kind of like lost the traction here in the United States, but I think in India. It's interesting because the population is so big, it makes that faster delivery, a little more cost effective, or a little more viable because of that like huge population and population density in some portions of the country too. So it's pretty interesting there. Yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, another thing which I found like companies like Amazon, what they have done in India is there's a lot of small scale retailers in India,
Hmm.
and who basically take care of the basic needs of people living around.
Mm.
So they have got registered them to the Amazon. So during COVID, I had seen this shift because these are the people, shops who did not close because
Mm.
the, they are the ones who were fulfilling all the requirements on Amazon.
Interesting.
So, and the last mile also became taken care of because the Amazon vehicles will come at a particular time. They just pick it up, and it has to just go another, say, maybe 500 or 1 kilometer, and then deliver it to the person who has ordered it. So there's a lot of shift, and also in the planning as compared to rest of the world, because in India, like the systems are little different in the sense that a retail shop has everything what it needs to take care of the population around.
Mm.
And now that person indirectly got associated to the e-commerce online channel, and he's selling his stuff. So that speeds up the the whole last mile delivery also.
Mm. Yeah, interesting. And it's interesting how, in different, different parts of the world, like how different things get leveraged, and, how does that, fit into what the existing infrastructure looked like, and, how does that
Yeah.
evolve, and still kind of like intertwine in some ways. So very interesting to talk to you here today, Ravi, and learn about, some of the military side, and, some of the complexities there, and some of the challenges, and what you've been able to do there, as well as, what's going on in the Indian market too, as well. Now you just recently graduated with your MBA, so congratulations to you. But I guess the question maybe is, what's next, or what are you currently working on?
So right now I'm working for a startup
Okay.
on a on an AI for basically uh, the startup is working on upgrading these systems in small restaurant business.
Mm.
So, and also I'm working on my own idea of on supply chain sustainability.
Mm.
So I'm working both because I believe that sustainability is key for supply chain in the longer run, and especially when the effect on global, if you say the warming, is more because of the things associated with supply chain.
Yeah.
If we are able to have a plan or basically the visibility of the complete end-to-end supply chain, I think we will be able to we'll be in a better position to work on resolving some of the critical issues related to the pollution, or maybe I'm looking for the long-term sustainability.
Mm.
So with those thought processes, I'm also working on one of my startup idea, and still in the ideation stage. I'm just gathering the data, and then I'll planning to go forward with that. And side by side, I'm also working with on a startup which is giving me also a different perspective on the like how the restaurant businesses they need support this kind of automation and support what this current startup is doing.
Mm. Yeah, interesting, interesting. Okay, well, we'll definitely be looking forward to learning more about that as it develops, and seeing what you're up to there. So, really appreciate you coming on the show today, Ravi, and it's a pleasure to speak with you. If people want to get in touch with you, learn more from you, what's the best way to do that?
I think I'm available on LinkedIn, and as Ravindra Pandey can be searched on. And also, my email ID is pandey.ravindra@gmail.com. Anytime, anywhere, I'll be there.
All right, great. And we'll definitely put that link to your LinkedIn in the show notes, as well as at thenewwarehouse.com, so people can easily find it. So, Ravi, thank you once again for your time on the show today.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Enjoyed this episode? Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast, and for more content from the new warehouse, find us on LinkedIn and YouTube. Links to subscribe can be found in the show notes, and for everything The New Warehouse, head to thenewwarehouse.com.